Hey, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm Jen, and I'm really happy that you're here today. Today's conversation is for the people who are doing a lot, maybe too much. The people who are smart, capable, caring, ambitious, and somehow still trying to hold together work, life, family, admin, dreams, deadlines, and the million invisible tabs open in their brains at all times. So, if you've been feeling overwhelmed, mentally cluttered, behind on things, or like your to do list has quietly become your full time enemy, this podcast episode is for you. I'm talking to Coach Lee, who's a criminal defense attorney by day and a productivity and accountability coach on the side or by night. She's our bet man in that, honestly, which honestly already tells you she knows a thing or two about pressure, priorities, and building systems that actually work in real life, not fantasy life, not wake up at 4 a.m. and become a robot life, real life. And that's exactly what we get into today. How to create systems that support you when life gets busy instead of only working when everything is calm, ideal, and color coded for once. We talk about her philosophy of systems over hustle and why so many high performing people burn out. Not because they're lazy or bad at planning, but because they're trying to keep too much in their heads and say yes too much and work against their actual rhythms instead of with them. One of my favorite things in this conversation is how practical it gets. No fluff, no just manifest harder, no fake productivity nonsense, just real tools. We talk about getting everything out of your head and onto your paper, how to sort your tasks into must, need, and like to do, which is by far my favorite one, why your productivity system has to match your energy and not just your calendar, how boundaries are often less about being harsh and more about being honest, how to spot the signs that you're heading toward burnout before your body starts screaming, and why every yes is costing you something somewhere else. And that part right there hit me right in the chest, by the way. This is one of those episodes where you may want a notebook nearby, or at the very least, pause every now and then and ask yourself, okay, where am I making things harder than they need to be? And if you're new here, hi, welcome. This is With Jen, where we talk about business, personal growth, ambition, creativity, emotional honesty, and building a life that actually feels like yours, not just one that looks good on the outside. If you enjoy conversations like this, make sure you follow the podcast, share it with someone who needs it, and come find me on social media as well. That's where I share updates on podcast episodes, free activities, networking opportunities, and personal and business development spaces that you can join. All right, grab your tea, grab your planner, grab your emotional support pen, and let's get into it. Coach Lee, oh my God, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, it's awesome. Okay, so we met through Threads, right? Yeah, which is a magical place. Actually, I've met like a couple of guests this way, and now recordings are planned, and I'm getting to talk to all these amazing entrepreneurs, and everyone has this unique story. And now we're looking for your unique story. And I just want to hear everything about who you are and what you're doing, and also why are you doing what you do? Because people always have like a huge story behind the whys of their businesses. So, Coach Lee, take the stage.
Who am I? I am criminal defense attorney by day, productivity and accountability coach, like I like to say throughout. I'm all about helping you to create systems that work with your life, your career, or your business that work even when life gets busy. It's all about creating systems that are customized to you. So this is about like systems and structure over hustle and like motivation. And why do I do what I do? Honestly, because of other people, and not in a people pleaser way. But for years, people were like, you're so motivated, you're so encouraging, you should be a coach. And I'm like, yes, full-time attorney here. Who's got time for that? Fast forward to March of 2020. We all know what happened then. I had time. So thankfully I didn't lose my job, but time appeared. I was bored. The thoughts started coming back to me. I started looking into it. If I'm the type of person, if I'm going to do something, I'm going all in. So I'm like, I know you don't have to have training to be a coach, but I'm going to get training. I'm going to get certified. So I'm a certified master life coach as well. And so I made it happen to the first video about like, what is a life coach? The video was all of like literally 3 to 5 minutes long. Halfway through, I'm like, oh, I get it. I see why they say I should be doing this. And here we are.
Awesome. And what kind of people do you help normally? Because when I think of that, I think of maybe myself when I was a couple of years younger and I was struggling with a burnout, for example, and I might have needed someone like you. I mean, here in the Netherlands, I have my GP and my therapist in that sense, but maybe in order to, be upfront of the burnout and to actually avoid it, maybe it would be nice to have you then. Do you also see ladies like that?
Yeah, it's really, I guess I would say like my focus is like the corporate and professional women. So I'm leaning into the legal professionals, but in leading to the legal professionals, it's also corporate applies the same way. So it's essentially about creating and having this work-life balance, because as women, especially those like do it all women, something needs to be done, take charge, they do it. You often get rewarded with more work. And as a result of having more work, you still want to make sure you're sticking up to those expectations that were had of you prior to these additional roles. And so burnout can become a thing. Overwhelm can become a thing. Stress can become a thing. Because I think as women, generally speaking, we already feel guilty asking for help because we're expected to like know it all, do it all, in comparison to men. No offense to the men. And so because we already have that like kind of stigma in our head, once we get into these roles where we're quote unquote like high performing women or showing up and, in these leadership roles or progressing in your career, we now also have life happening outside of that, whether that be relationship, children, pets, just wanting to like do other things for yourself. Then now you're like, how do I quote unquote do it all? How do I balance it? And so, yeah, burnout, overwhelm, stress easily becomes a thing.
Oh my God. Yeah. I can totally see that, especially the part where we already feel guilty enough as is towards our family, towards our friends, maybe our kids. And you kind of have to carve out some permission for yourself to start shining and to actually be able to create a job and a life as well as home as, outside of it, so that you're becoming more comfortable in your own skin, but also definitely in your own mind, because I do see that going wrong here in Europe the whole time. How's that for you?
I would say that it definitely applies. And it applies in corporate, but even women who are like, okay, I'm leaving this corporate grind to go start my own business, I feel like they still have that same thought process or that same philosophy. And so I like to flip the script in the sense of it's not about carving out time for self. You're carving out time for other things. Like you start first with self because you can't pour from an empty cup. So by you taking that time to pour into you, take care of self first before you show up for any and everyone else, we're good. You're giving from your overflow because you've taken care of self first. Like even like now with us recording, I know we're opposite ends of the time zone, but like I've worked out, I've gone for a run, I've done like my devotional, my journaling. I've poured into self, and now I'm ready to show up for business and then ultimately my job in a way that I know that I'm good. I've done the things that are going to help me mentally, like not be stressed out, not be overwhelmed, not necessarily be as snappy towards people.
Yeah, because the snappiness is really what comes from it. If you're not pouring into yourself, that's what I recognize. And as a lot of listeners know, I have issues with my grandfather, taking care of him and all that stuff. I mean, love the guy, but it makes sure that I get to pour less into myself. And what are like 2 or 3 tips that you give to women when you're seeing them being overwhelmed and you want them to start pouring into themselves first for a little bit? Do you have like a couple of like, I wouldn't say quick fixes because they are not quick fixes, like you're journaling as well. And we know that it's an ongoing process. I do it nearly every evening. But what are a couple of tips that you could give so that people could feel more comfortable within themselves?
I would say get it out of your head and onto paper, whether that be from the journaling aspect. But for me, I'm a list maker. So like when it comes to like, oh crap, what do I have to do today? Like out of my head onto paper. for me, like getting outside gets my brain flowing. So like when I was out running this morning, because I had traveled last week for work. So because typically on Fridays is when I do my to-do list and brain dump for work to be prepared for Monday. But because I was traveling and out of town on Friday, I didn't do that. So when I was out running, I was like, okay, what are the first couple things I need to do when I log into work? And so like on my run, I was like, okay, these are the couple things you need to knock out for work because you haven't set the calendar up like you normally would on Friday. So I would say start with getting it out of your head and onto paper, whether that be the to-do list, the millions of things that you need to do, you want to do, or you have to do, but even the things that you want to do for yourself that you quote unquote don't have time for. Like, what are those things so you can have them out of your head and onto paper? Because once we have it onto paper, we can start visualizing, where can this apply? Where can I plug this in? What can I do with it? And start literally scheduling and carving out that time to put that thing into.
Yeah, exactly. And incidentally, well, people won't be seeing this, but I made a whole dump list this morning. Like, I made a whole dump list because I thought to myself, okay, Jen, you're going nuts right now. This is not okay. Let's not do this. There's too many things on your plate. Let's dump it onto paper indeed. And I opened up my laptop and I just put some background music on, and I didn't look at my schedule because I wanted to avoid that. I don't know if that's any of your tips too, but I just wanted to avoid checking what's on my schedule, and I wanted to go through my brain through the big Rolodex of to-do stuff. And I just word vomited. And the word vomit is now out of my head, so it's not occupying all these gigabytes in my head basically. I just have it on a list now, and indeed I feel like a lot calmer.
Yeah, it really does help. I do similar. I will look at my calendar, but I typically, what's front and center in my mind right now, let me get that out of my head and onto paper, because just because it's on my head doesn't mean it's a due today thing. It could just literally be something that's on my mind that needs to get done. Like I'm traveling again this week. So like I'm thinking about airport parking. That's not necessarily a today problem because I don't leave for 4 or 5 more days, but I do need to figure out, like, because I'm flying out of a different airport, so I'll be closer to my parents. Like, do I want to see if my parents want to just drop me off at the airport instead of paying for parking like I normally would since I'm not at my normal airport? Or do I want to just take myself? So like, I got to figure that out, because normally I would just, reserve airport parking and keep it moving. But it's something that I wrote down when I was doing my brain dump yesterday for the week, and like literally planning out my schedule. Like you said, you made a dump list. I started this thing of writing out my schedule on paper. So I'll do a brain dump over the weekend of like, this is what all needs to get done this week. And then once I have that brain dump list, I then open up my planner and say, where do I think ideally in the perfect week, in the perfect world, where would I do all these things based off of what's on my calendar? And so then I can kind of start penciling out and scheduling out my week. And though you can't see it, it's a full sheet, but this is like Sunday's not on there. So this is like Monday through Friday. But as you can see, there's still some white lines on Friday and Saturday. Friday and Saturday is when I'm traveling. So I'm trying to front load my week pre-travel to say, get all these things out of the way, because yes, I might have plane time. Yes, I might have downtime, but let's not bank on once I'm going away to do the thing that I'm going to do, that I'm going to have all this extra time. Let's look at where I have the normal time when I'm in my normal element Monday through Thursday.
Your first piece of advice is basically dump it on paper, get it out of your head, and just it just feels, for me, feels liberating in my brain. Doesn't it do the same for you, where you're like, it
feels liberating in my body, not just my brain too, but like the body is like, okay, I don't have to hold on to that anymore. Because like, how often do you like walk out of a room, walk to the next room over, like going to pick up your glasses, going to go to the restroom, going to get a charger, like something simple, and you get to that room and you're like, what did I come over here for? And literally 5-second walk, you lost it. And you're standing there, now you're like playing back. Okay, I was sitting at my desk, I was doing this, and then I needed to got it. And then you remember what it was. That was literally a 5-second walk to get one thing. Think about it, like you said, gigabytes of information that is constantly running through your head that you're trying to hold on to in the midst of doing things. Like you're driving and thinking about all these other things. You're trying to edit a podcast and do all these things. I'm trying to write a motion and all these other things are in my head.
Yeah.
How are we balancing these things out? So yeah, it's liberating in the mind, but also you can often like feel the weight of it. Like, this is manageable. Like, yes, I have a 17,000 page list in front of me now, but I can dictate and decide what is it in that list. And then I guess if it's time for me to give another tip, I have a second tip that you can use now that you have that list on paper if you want.
I would love to hear some more.
So after you now have this list, and like I was saying, I have things on the list that are not a do today thing. I then categorize my list. And you can do this with, like, if you like it's not necessarily about making it pretty and colorful, but you can use, like, a pen, a highlighter, whatever the case may be. But essentially, you're now going to prioritize that list. What must get done versus what needs to get done versus what you would like to do. Because must is like, those, if today was Thursday, I must figure out when I'm doing about airport parking because I leave in the morning. But on Monday, that's a I need to do thing. And so when you're looking at your list and you're looking at your week, think about what's going on. What of this is truly a priority? So the must-dos are the top priorities. Those are going to be like star, asterisk, asterisk. Those need to get done are like, they might not be a priority this week, but maybe next week they now move up in priorities. And those like to do's are those things that it's like, it'll be nice if I get to this, but it's not time sensitive, or even this is just like a fun project that I want to do, but if I don't get to it, it's okay. So once we understand that all things aren't created equal, it helps you to better identify and figure out where am I going to really put these things on my schedule.
Holy crap, that's amazing. I love that. So it was must, need, and like to do. Wow. Okay, but my brain is just, I can feel it exhale. My body and my brain are exhaling right now because I'm looking at my list and I'm super happy that I still have my list that I wrote this morning. Now I can actually say to myself, okay, editing this podcast is a nice to do, but for next week, because then I want another duo podcast out. But I must create for social visuals for socials, because otherwise I won't have any planned for this week. And otherwise, I would probably be like a hot mess, and I would kind of just chronologically go through my list and totally do all the wrong stuff.
Yeah, you would just probably start at the top and just go down the list and then get to like the middle and you're like burnt out because probably the things that came to your mind in the beginning are the things that take the most time. And then those things that take 2 to 3 minutes are at the bottom of the list. And you're like, well, what if I mix these up? What if I did like a heavy task with a quick task? So I gave myself like double wins and you get those endorphins going. When do you work best?
Coach Lee, you're a genius. You are a genius. My mind is blown. Holy crap. Yeah, no, that's amazing. Okay, I'm going to plan this differently tomorrow morning. I'm going to look again at the list with like a fresh brain, with a fresh set of eyes and a fresh mindset. And oh my God, that's going to be awesome. I will definitely let you know how that goes because that's wow. Okay, so must, need, like, batch something bigger with something smaller so you can get your endorphins going. This is amazing. And I hope that you who's listening right now is writing with us because this is going to be a game changer for you as well. Little sting for Coach Lee, you should definitely go look her up. But I will put everything into show notes as well. So you know where to find her because I think we need you. We definitely need you. And is there anything else, like something that you would categorize as a small tip, but something that I wouldn't be thinking of?
And see, that's the thing. Like a lot of the things you might not think about it immediately, but then like when I say it, you're like, light bulb, that makes sense. Like my whole thing, like when people are like, you should be a coach. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they were like, well, how do you do all the things? And I'm like, you just do them. Like not even in a negative way, but not realizing that people struggle to like do this. Cause I guess apparently that's just how my brain works. And it's like, so for me, it's all about literally simplifying productivity because we do all day long. But are we doing it in a way that works for our body? So I guess another small tip would be like, do you know when you work best? Like we have all these tasks. We have all these things that we want to do. And I know even before we started recording, you were like, I'm ready to get my creative juices going. When do you create this? Like, okay, you talked about having to create 4 social assets for the week. If you work best at being creative in the morning, schedule that for the morning versus I'm an early bird. Like I said, I've already worked out, went for a run, devotional reading. I've done all the things and we're here. And for me, I do my best like heavy thinking stuff in the morning. So I try to put those projects that involve a lot of brain power earlier in the day. Given as an attorney, oftentimes morning times also equals court. but I'm typically not in court all morning, maybe like the first hour and a half of the day. And then I have this like 2 or so hour break until lunchtime. So I try to put my high value tasks there. But I also I take a walk every day at work because that resets me and that gets me going. So typically I don't take my lunch break till closer to like 12:30, 12:45, because I come off of my walk energized and I have this brain power to like kick out stuff. And then I hit this lull after lunch to where like I have the brain power, but no, I don't. So a lot of times that's when I like write my notes or input notes or do things like that need to get done, but they don't really involve my brain power. And then I hit this gear again, like that last hour and a half of work where I'm like, get it done. Cause I'm like looking at the clock, I'm probably racing the clock to try to get things done. So when I do my brain dump, when I'm thinking about my day, I kind of try to, as I'm writing down the things, kind of put in based off of, do I have court today? Do I have appointments? How can I balance out when I work best with those things? And even outside of that, since I'm doing full-time job and then have this business and then living life in the midst of it for business, like my coaching calls are obviously in the evenings after work. I can do coaching with my eyes closed because my brain just works when it comes to this planning and productivity thing. Like I can do that in my sleep. So I try to, obviously coaching calls are in the evening, but I try to make sure that like my personal development, my back end business stuff, my content creation, things like that, I try to do that in the morning because I work on my business an hour or so before work, use my lunch break at work. And then in the evenings, if I don't have coaching calls, do things as well. So I even balance like literally my entire day from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed, because within that day, I'm taking care of life, business, and work. How am I scheduling out those things? So asking yourself, when do you work best, and figuring out how can we plan and do those things across your day.
Feel that one, because I'm also an early bird. I mean, not as early as you, because you are definitely a way early riser, but I do tend to get up at around 6:30. That's my sweet spot. And indeed, I open up my laptop in the morning. That's when I get to do all the brainsy stuff. I get to do all the intelligent stuff. And in the afternoons, for example, I know my intelligent or brainsy stuff that's kind of done because you've depleted your brain. You've already made about like 15,000 decisions in the whole day. So that's crazy. It's nuts what we do as human beings, by the way. And that's when I start doing the simple between brackets again stuff like editing my podcast. I don't really have to think about it. So I get to just mindlessly cut out the long ums and ahs that we've been thinking about for a long time, or, you know, the awkward silences or the bloopers, whatever. I get to cut those out so that, well, it just gets easier in the afternoon. And yeah, so I kind of feel that one. But I also see that a lot of people are kind of obliging themselves to be within that rhythm, because I've read this book, and I don't know the title of the book anymore, but it's about circadian rhythms, and that, you know, there's gatherers and there's hunters and all these different types of blood. And my mom, for example, she's an evening person. So probably within her blood and her genetic system, something in her body tells her, okay, you're an evening person. So she gets really creative and really intense in the evenings. That's really her jam. So she should be doing that. But we do push people to kind of be like you and me, like go 9 to 5, whatever, or get up around this time. How do you deal with that for yourself? Because being an entrepreneur and being in court, that's already, you're doing a lot. You sound like a superhuman, to be very honest. How are you even doing that for yourself?
Well, one, I don't advocate in pushing anybody to do anything that's not going to work for them, because I feel like that's what society has done for so long, which is why people are stuck in this pattern of burnout and overwhelm of like, I did this for, a week or two and then I fell off. Right. Probably because you're forcing yourself to work against your body. How about we work with our body instead of against it, and we be more in flow? Like, I'm not anti-hard work, but I'm anti-hustle and grind. Working hard doesn't have to mean hustling. Like, when you're working hard, but you're doing it in a way that works with your body, you get things like I feel like you're a superhero. And I'm like, I don't feel like I am. And like, I appreciate the compliment, but also for me, I'm like, I sleep, I work out, I drink my water, I take care of my body. Like, I don't feel like I'm missing or neglecting any area. Yes, there might be those weeks where you're like, okay, I'm in trial this week, I probably got a little bit less sleep, but I quickly the next week fix and adjust, or, use the weekend and sleeping a little bit more. But like on a day-to-day basis, like I don't. And so for me, I've started doing this thing at work. I really started like the middle of last year, to where like my work calendar this week at work says ask before scheduling. And so basically in life and also in business, and so I started incorporating it at work, I use the last week of the month to plan for the month ahead. So like I try at work to always work a week ahead, meaning this week I'm working on stuff that's due next week, or like if I have meetings and stuff that are next week, prepping those this week, so that because as a criminal defense attorney, I can't say when people are going to get arrested. And if someone gets arrested and I have to run to the jail to, shut them down or do that, I have to have the space and capacity to do so. I don't want to be like, I'm in the middle of working on a motion that's due today, and now I have to go do this, which leads to staying late at work or bringing work home. I don't work late. I don't bring work home. In the almost 13 years of me being an attorney, I can count on one hand the number of times that I've brought work home or worked the weekend.
Wow.
And count on one hand, I probably can use 3 fingers.
Holy guacamole.
The exception would be like we do get assigned weekend duty, like maybe once a quarter, but that's an assigned duty. So to me, that's working because I'm scheduled to work that day. So I don't count that. But like literally in 12 years, I've gone into work on a Saturday twice. Like there wasn't a weekend day, and weekend duty is me literally at the jail. So I don't even count that. I've brought work home to work on, aside from a work from home day, probably maybe once. Like I don't. It's not like literally in 12 years. Well, this year will be 13 years. And I've been able to do that by figuring out what works. And in the 12, almost 13 years of me working there, I've had to make adjustments because like when I was a newer attorney, so I was in misdemeanor, I had to, finagle my schedule one way versus when I got voted and I was in felony, it looked a little differently. Now I'm like major crime, so I deal with most of the dead bodies. So I do most of the murders. So I have a little bit more free space on my calendar in terms of court, but I have more space. I have more appointments on my calendar for like depositions because like I was saying, I traveled last week. I was traveling for work. Sometimes I have to travel for work now because of the location of where the witnesses are. But like I create this balance. And so like I was saying, like this week at work, my calendar says ask before scheduling. So my secretaries or anyone with access to my calendar, they'll ask me like, hey, I'm trying to schedule this. Your calendar says ask before scheduling. And depending on what it is, I tell them yes or no. If it's something that we've been trying to get scheduled for like weeks or months, I oftentimes will say, yes, go ahead. But if it's something like a client who called today who wants to come in next week, but they don't have court for 2 or 3 months, no, set it for the week after. And so we also get one work from home day a week at work. I tend to make mine Fridays because no matter what happened Monday through Thursday, if I have a Friday at home where no one is distracting me, I'm often able to catch up. And so the work from home thing is the thing that came out of the pandemic after everyone being sent home. And now they like, when we came back, they were like, okay, you can get one work from home day a week. So like my calendar on Friday, literally the whole day, Monday through Friday says ask before scheduling so that I can have that time to like, if the week went to crap, here's how I can reset it to make sure that I feel like I end the week strong to be prepared and set up for what's to come. And so it's about literally finding what works for me. Like I said, in the 12, almost 13 years that I've been there, I've had to create and adjust the systems that I have and the systems that I use based off of caseload, the type of cases that I'm assigned, different things like that. Because now with doing the murders, I'm in 3 different courtrooms. So I'm looking at 3 different judges' calendars. Like even when honestly, like when I'm planning vacations, like it's my calendar is booked out for the year. Like my vacations are on my work calendar. They say don't schedule. I add an extra day on the front end and the back end just in case a plane gets delayed so that I'm not, stuck somewhere and I'm like, crap, I have court tomorrow. And I always do the day before because I want to make sure that I can set myself up to be away. Like this day says don't schedule because I'm trying to make sure voicemails, emails, everything is planned and prepared for me to be away so that when I come back, I'm not coming back to who done it and why. So it's literally about finding what works for you and adjusting and tweaking the schedules because what might have worked for you last year, 2 years ago, likely in some ways might not work. The foundations might, but you might have to make some adjustments.
Yeah, exactly. And I also kind of hear within the words that it's also a big boundary thing. A lot of women find it hard to, give some boundaries to either their manager or their own business, or they take everything home. Indeed. I have this other friend and she owns a salon, a beauty salon, and she loves her job, but she brings everything home. I might actually forward her this and tell her, go check out Coach Lee. You need Coach Lee, because it's just also I don't want to be rude and say a lack of boundaries, but I think you know where I'm getting at.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so sad that, especially us as women, okay, I don't want to be too feministic, guys, but there's so many things expected from us within society. We are expected to, you know, take care of elderly, but also our kids, but also be there for work, and also be on call for, you know, volunteering things, and also for the house, and yada, yada, yada. You can go on for hours on end. So if we don't set up those boundaries for ourselves, we are starting to kind of, you know, feel trapped within our jobs and within our homes. And, you know, and I'm wondering, how do you see that with your clients, with your coachees?
I think it depends. And I know the lawyer in me is like, we say this all the time at work, it depends. But like, it literally depends, because for me, the reason I love one-on-one coaching is about getting to know and understand the individual, so that I'm not giving, and I get with podcasts, you kind of have to, but like I try to still give options, like this generic advice to where it's not applicable. But I think the biggest thing is understanding your why. What is important to you? And in different seasons, literally different things can be important. Like maybe you're going for a promotion, and so you're communicating with family, with friends, like, hey, these next 3, 6 year, whatever the time frame is, I'm going to have to give more to work. Me, attorney, when I have a trial week, even if I have clients that are booked, I communicate with them. Hey, I have a trial scheduled for this week. You know, the trial is scheduled to be 4 days. Your call is on day 4 of when the trial should start, which means if the jury is out, I likely can't do our call, but here's what I can do. I'll check in with you at lunchtime to let you know what it's looking like. If the judge tells us I'm going to keep you here until this time, I'll communicate that with you, and we can figure out what is the pivot, what is the adjustment that we're going to make. And so I think it's about literally understanding your why. And sometimes your why literally changes day to day and week to week, but generally it kind of goes in seasons. And so a thing that I started doing last year, literally halfway through last year, I was like, I'm throwing out yearly goals. Like, no one's got time for yearly goals. Given I did still set a couple yearly goals, but what I really found was that because I have so many balls in the air, like when work gets busy, sometimes I don't shut down business, but the capacity or the ability to do in this area might be limited. Oh, work is freed up and clear. Okay, I have more capacity in business. Okay, life, I'm traveling, so that's going to affect business and work. And so like last year when I was like, I'm not setting yearly goals anymore, because what I found was there was too much up in the air stuff. But so the yearly goals that I set are ones that are, I don't want to say they're like, it's no way I can't hit it, but it's more like I can reverse engineer. Like I set a running goal for the year. So I understand what that looks like on a quarterly and a monthly basis. And so I can kind of, okay, this month is lighter, so I can run more here, or whatever the case may be. But essentially what I started deciding to do is kind of, I'm not sure if you read the book, The 12-Week Year. I'm kind of focusing on, it's essentially about, I'm not doing it exactly the way he wrote it, which is, again, take what you need, spit out the rest. Essentially, the book 12-Week Year is about each quarter is a year. So you try to accomplish in 12 weeks what you would accomplish in a year. I don't necessarily go, I don't want to say that extreme, because I'm not saying it doesn't work. But for me, my court dates at work typically get set 60 to 90 days out, which means if I know what's roughly going to happen at work the next 60 to 90 days, I can plan in business. What do I want to launch? What does my capacity look like for clients? Like maybe I'm not promoting one-on-one coaching. Maybe I'm only promoting strategy sessions, because those are single sessions, because this is a busier time. So I don't have to worry about meeting with the person for the next 6 weeks. I just have to meet with them one time and they're good to go. And so maybe that's what I'm going to promote in this season because of work being busy, or travel for work, personal or business, like whatever the case may be. And so deciding to kind of go that way, I feel freer. And so I'm able to kind of think about and structure, what does that look like for me in this season? As we adapt and as we go about, like, it goes back to what is your why and what's important to you. For me, looking at the quarter helps me decide what's important for me. For women, men as well, like as you're going through life, business, career, whatever the case may be, and you're like, how can I show up and be the best version of me? the best version of you in this season might not be the same as the best version of you last season. We are whole people. We're human beings. And so we have to be. And so when I look at and think about wholeness, yes, I think about it as 100%, but that doesn't have to mean 100% in every area. Maybe you're giving work 75%. And so you're making sure you still pour into yourself 20%. And so then you only have maybe 5% for your relationships. Communicate that so that it's not like a sudden, like, what is this? But in communicating it, you're also putting like a number on it, putting a time frame on it. Like, hey, for the next fill in the blank amount of time, this is what I need, or this is what I can give. This is what I can't give. I know you were mentioning like your granddad, like, hey, communicating like, for this day, this week, I need you to be able to handle this because I don't have the capacity for this day, for this week, for whatever the time period it might be, and create that balance. So what does it look like? Like, what is the why? What's important? And use that to kind of reverse engineer and guide what you're doing.
That's so cool. Wow.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. Yeah, no, so definitely that reverse engineering and seeing where your life is basically pointing you towards to. I do feel like we don't do that often enough as humans. And indeed, afterwards, that part of communicating to your partner, family member, friend, whoever you may have a close relationship with, we don't really do that either. Saying like, hey, I've noticed that my life is pointing very much towards the caretaking of my aging mom. So I will have less time for you unless we can figure something out. And you might have to step into role ABC so that we can figure this out together. So that's definitely something that we do struggle with. And I can definitely see you helping people with that, because you are quite the steady lady. I do think that you have your boundaries very well preserved for yourself and very well made. How do you do that? Because we all struggle with it.
I would say that it's funny you say boundaries. Like yesterday we did a webinar. I co-hosted a webinar about basically your yes is expensive, the hidden cost of saying yes, because every yes you give is a no to something else. And so if you're saying that this is a boundary that I want to put in place, whatever the case may be, not bringing work home, only working late on X day. Like though I don't want to work late and though I don't want to bring work home, I'm not going to tell you not to do it. Like I had a client that I was working with that for her, because of childcare, like some days, like everything was 1 or 2 days a week, she had to like for sure leave work on time to be able to get to the daycare. Because I don't know about there, but here, if you don't pick up your child by 6 o'clock, they're calling like DCF, like Department of Children and Families, to report you as a bad parent because you're late picking up your child. She pretty much was creating a schedule to where these are the days that I'm going to work late, and or these are the days that I'm going to go into work early. And like her husband worked from home, so like he was like cool, because for him, before, she was leaving work on time, but was still bringing work home. And so in the midst of trying to do dinner, bedtime, and all of that, she's like on the computer working. So he's kind of like, if you need to go in early or stay late on specific days, because that means you're not bringing work home, and when you're here, you're fully present, do it. Because for him, it was like, I'd rather you be at work and be able to focus than, number one, we all know that when you're trying to multitask, I'm not anti-multitasking, but there are things that it is hard to multitask and do. Like if you're trying to, and her kids were like both under 5. They were like under 3, I think, like newborn and like toddler. If you're trying to literally do dinner or bedtime, like even if husband has 1 kid and you have 1 kid, you're not bringing that laptop into the bathroom because you're going to have water on it. So you attempting to work on whatever the project might be, you might get 5 minutes in before a kid interrupts you. Now you're coming back to it and you're like, where was I at? So what could have likely been, let me stay at work late for an hour and knock this out, is now 2 to 3 hours in the midst of all these other things. You're stuck and you're confused. I'm going to help you to create the life that you want. If the life that you want means I'm going to work late, in order to not bring work home, that's balance to me, because that means you're likely honestly getting more done by staying late at work than bringing the work home, especially if you're coming home to other people, because you're going to have that distraction. I think it's just important to, again, understand the why and understand the purpose. And then with that, be willing to make potentially sacrifices to do it. So what sacrifice are you willing to make? You say you want this goal. You say, I want $1 million, I want to lose this weight, but yet when it comes to weight loss, like you're not willing to stop eating out, stop eating the fried foods, work out, drink the water, do the workouts, but then you're upset that you didn't lose the weight.
Oh, yeah. What is your system behind it?
Right. You want $1 million, but you're spending $1 million like it's going out of style without saving anything. Like, do you really want the life that you say that you want, or has society made you believe that's what you need to have? And so therefore you're saying you want it because they say that you want it, but that's not really important to you.
Yeah, that's indeed very clear. Wow. And also the thing that you said about every yes costing you something else. Also, yeah, I don't know, like with everything that's happening around me right now, I felt that one in my soul when you said that. I was like, oh, holy crap. Because yesterday I said yes to going back and forth to grandpa and to his house and doing things. But on the other hand, it costed me my musical afternoon where I was supposed to be making music and to relax a little. Whereas, when I step into the next, I've done something that's feeding my soul. So indeed, think about what is this going to cost me and how am I going to feel afterwards, and also my family, and also the thing with the working at home and the husband saying like, I'd rather have you be at the office for X amount of time. So clear boundary again, clear ask, because then at home you're present. Also very fair. So those are two things to keep in mind very deeply. I honestly hope that everyone has a notepad and paper and because there's like so many things coming out of this. I feel like I'm being coached, and I feel like you're poking right through my soul, lady.
Hey, we're here to break it down and get to the like practical things that can actually work and apply, because I don't ever want to like speak and it's just like fluff that no one's like can do anything with. I'd rather someone be able to take, even if it's just one thing away, like that made sense.
Yeah. And, what are some signals where you also see people who, on paper, they're doing fine, but they're actually nearing towards a burnout, a bore out, any of the outs that you might be able to have?
I'll speak for me. For me, I know, and my coworkers know, when I need a break. They know that I take a walk every day, and they know I typically do an intermittent fasting. So I normally don't eat until like 11-ish or whatever. But when I'm in trial, for example, the judge typically gives like an hour, maybe an hour 15 break. And so for me, and it probably is a bad thing, but I don't know. I'd rather go for a walk than eat lunch when I'm in trial, because I'd rather reset my brain in that way. So if I only have an hour 15, I'm taking my 45-minute walk. Sometimes my coworkers know that I'm in trial, so they're like, hey, do you want me to take out your food so you can at least take a couple bites of it when you come back from your walk? Because I also have this weird thing of I don't like to take my food straight from the refrigerator to the microwave. So they're like, go for your walk. I'll take out your food, because like literally I put my lunchbox in the same spot in the refrigerator every day. So like they know where it's at. Or if they see me running around and like I sound snappy, they're like, hey, did you eat? Did you get your walk in? So like they know that's not necessarily burnout, but repeated acts of that day in and day out could literally lead to burnout. And so I remember one time at work, it was a couple years ago, that like I had done back-to-back trials, like back-to-back hearings. Like I had had a moment, but I had not had enough time to like be in my office in literally weeks. I felt like I was just go. And I was sitting on trial with my coworker, and the state, they couldn't get a piece of evidence in. And pretty much if they couldn't get it in, they were likely going to drop it. And so normally my coworkers know, like after work, I don't want to talk about work, but I'm like, hey, if the state tells you they're dropping that, let me know, because I'm taking off tomorrow if they do. Like I need a reset. Like I just need a day. And she texted me at night and she was like, they said they're dropping it. By the time that text message finished going through, emailing my boss, like, out tomorrow. And I had even told my boss, I'm like, hey, because she was like asking like how was trial going earlier in the day. And I'm like, they're having this issue. If they can't get it in, I'm taking off tomorrow. Like, and she pretty much was like, yeah, you have been go, and you're good. Like, obviously, there's nothing on your calendar, because she knows me. I'm not going to take off if there's something on my calendar. But that came through, and that was the one time that I literally felt like because normally I'm a planner. So like I normally plan my off days and I plan the space to, breathe, and typically don't let my calendar get like that. It was like, yeah, we need to take this moment. And so for each person, it might look differently. But generally speaking, like being like extra snappy or extra angry, being extra short, being like, curt or whatever word you want to use are typically signs of like leading to burnout. It might not be burnout yet, but the more it keeps happening, the shorter that fuse gets, the more you get. Maybe you're an emotional person. Do you find yourself being like, crying more, sad more, just withdrawn more, just like, I don't want to people. I'm generally not a people person. So, but if I find myself like really, really not wanting to people, that's probably a sign. Like wanting to withdraw, wanting to retreat, like wanting to be more with yourself because you feel like I just need to be over here working and getting things done. Like I don't have time to be out here. Or even sometimes getting upset with other people because it looks like they're having fun. Like, why are you over there having fun? There's work to be done. And so for each person, it might be different, but I would say kind of generally speaking, those might be some good signs to look for to figure out, like, am I burning out? Am I on the way to burnout? Like, what's the problem?
Yeah, exactly. And then it's good for yourself to keep that in check. And that's also where the journaling magically comes in. I think that for you and me both, it helps us both a lot. And as for journaling, I know that helps a lot. And I tend to journal basically every day. I do skip like twice a week, maybe when I'm too busy. So that's yet again like the word vomit that you're actually putting on paper together with your dump list.
Yeah.
And how's that journaling for you? Have you been doing it for long, and how has it helped you?
So, back in the day, Dear Diary, growing up, used to do that journal. I got away from it from like years. Like I would start, like I still have found notebooks because I'm a collector of notebooks. I'd be surprised. I need things to put lists in. Then I'm like, oh, from like this is from this time. My aunt passed in 2001. And I found a notebook, and I didn't really find it. It wasn't really missing. I knew she had given it me, so I had kind of like not used it. But like last year, I finally filled up that notebook that she gave me in 2001, 20 years later. And so my journaling is more like prayer journaling. So like, hey, Lord, I'm going to need you to guide me today. Today might be a little stressful, or this is what I'm thinking, but you got some other thoughts you got? So for me, it's more like prayer journaling, and I typically do mine in the morning, like as part of like reading my personal development and my devotional, like kind of going into the day and kind of like setting the tone for the day. Like, here's my plan. Does my plans align with your plans? Or, hey, this happened yesterday. I reset out of it, but it's still coming up. So it's kind of like it is journaling, but it's kind of like prayer journaling, like with the added like faith aspect to it for me.
That's gorgeous. And it's also very interesting how we both do differently. I do see the intentional and kind of prayer journaling, although for me, I'm not super practicing in anything, but I do feel like I am writing to something else. So there must be, for everyone, there must be like some form of like higher power, whether you call it like Yahweh, God, whatever, or just the universe or Mother Nature. But I do it in the evening, and I look back on my day, and I kind of tend to write down what I've learned from that day. So, but indeed, also asking beforehand, like, hey, these are my plans. Do they align for what you have in store for me?
Right.
That's actually also a very interesting one to maybe be trying a couple of times. Okay, that I'm going to note that down. I'm going to try that. I'm going to reverse this little thing, and you never know. Yeah. Maybe I'll get some new answers.
And maybe for some people, like I know we both said we're morning people. So for me, setting the tone in the morning is good. But like on the flip side of that, I do my to-do list for the next day before I go to bed. So I set my intention at night for this, which is why in the morning when I'm journaling, I've already decided last night, this is what, because generally speaking, yes, I get things can happen overnight, but I'm going to bed. So generally speaking, like work's not open, no clients should be setting appointments, like nothing generally speaking should happen in the time that I'm sleeping. Between the time I'm sleeping and waking up, it's going to completely throw off my schedule. So like I make my to-do list before I go to bed, like here's what I got done, here's what's going to happen tomorrow. So when I wake up and I do the journaling in the morning, the idea of primacy and recency, like the last thing that I was thinking about before I went to bed was my to-do list. So the first thing that's kind of like on my mind when I wake up is my to-do list, which is why I kind of like refer back to it. Like, here's what I'm thinking for the day, or here's the part where I'm not really sure how this is going to work. So if you can help me on this part, I haven't quite, like, it's on the schedule, but I haven't really figured out how I'm going to get here, there, and still do this. So I can use your help on this area. I haven't quite figured this out.
Yeah, and for me, I do it the other way around. I plan in the morning, so I will look at my calendar, and I have a physical one. I love a pen and paper, but whether you do it on pen and paper or digitally, I really don't care. Like, whatever works for you works for you. But it's just interesting how people fill that in. But we are both doing it. So basically, the whole lesson of this is keep your pencil and your paper, keep it close by, and make sure that you get to know yourself through your journaling. Make sure that you kind of word vomit on there and make a kind of dump list where you said the things that you must do, the things that you need to do, and the things that you would like to do. That's a great system. Wow, that's definitely going on my to-do list tomorrow morning. I'm so happy. That one blew my mind. So no, definitely. I'm so happy that I've been talking to you, because it feels like I was being personally coached. And I do know that a lot of people are feeling the same chaos that I am feeling within my head about my company. And, everyone has either a job or a family or something to take care of. And we all have such busy lives, especially nowadays, because there's so much expected from us. And this is very, I wouldn't say off script, because we didn't really script this or anything. I just sent a couple of questions, but a question that I didn't send out, and I'm just very curious about your opinion. Do you feel like technology nowadays is just influencing us largely as well on our stress levels and our planning and everything?
I think it depends on how you're using it, because I think it can work for your benefit, just like it can be a hindrance. Like, the whole AI thing, I know people are using like AI to help them plan and schedule their day. I think that's a plus, that's a positive. But the flip side of it is, are you now looking at technology and you're like, dang, she got so much done, and like, why does her schedule look like this? Or, then the comparison side comes into play. So I think it really depends on how you're using it. What boundaries do you have in place, and where do you go, and what do you do? Because like, even when it comes to like my to-do list, I'm a paper and pen girl, but I also use Asana to kind of like digitally organize, especially those brain dumps that are like, this isn't a today problem, this is a future me problem. Those especially kind of come to Asana, because I kind of have my board set up for like, do today, do this week, do this month, future to-do list. And so I can kind of put those and categorize them to know that like, you're not going to forget it, it's here. As opposed to it being on some piece of paper that, if you can see my desk behind me, God only knows where it might be, because it keeps getting moved and it's not a due today thing. So now it's lost. So I think that technology, just like anything, there's good and there's bad. Like, there's good coaches, there's bad coaches, there's good therapists, there's bad therapists, there's good, employers, bad employers. Like, everything I would say needs a boundary, and you get to decide what that boundary looks like for you. Because people say, don't take your phone first thing in the morning. I go to bed at like 8:30 at night. I miss all kinds of good stuff. As part of my morning routine, I check my phone in the morning, like while I'm brushing my teeth or like picking out my clothes. Like, I'm just letting like the stories play, like people's Instagram stories play. So like, technically I'm checking social media, but I'm not like actively checking it at the same time. Like, I'm multitasking. Like, while I'm brushing my teeth, I'm doing this.
Yeah, I kind of get that, since, we're both morning people. I also get up early, and I tend to grab my phone earlier than the sun is up. But it's definitely just to keep in touch with the outside world and to make sure that I didn't miss anything important. So I totally feel that, because if we would have to wait until the sun is up to grab our phones, we would have been up for 3 hours already. So that would not work for you and me. I definitely get that. And also for, my own opinion, I do feel like we should be wary of technology and social media, and now definitely in the day and age of AI, because AI can be very sycophantic, especially ChatGPT. I've tried several ones now, and ChatGPT is quite, so we have to be careful for a little bit.
Yeah,
that can be a bit of a thing. But on the other hand, to use it as a tool and to use it as something that is complementary to your life, go for it.
Yeah, definitely. Like, trust but verify.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need the hallucinations within the blogs that you're writing because we've seen enough of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, before we part our ways, I have another question because now I'm also curious about, us both sleeping early and everything. And I've already told the listeners about my own schedule, but what made you start paying attention to your rhythms, like sleep and everything? Like, how did you decide for yourself, oh, I'm a morning person, this whole evening thing doesn't work for me?
I think I've always been a morning person. Like, even as a child, I was the child who, like, when it was time to wake up for school, I didn't necessarily struggle with getting up. And so I've always been a morning person. Like, I get 2:30 in the morning. People are like, yeah, I get morning, but that's absurd. So I've always been a morning person. And then even when it came to like choosing my own schedule in college, I was always like, give me the 8 o'clock class, give me the 9 o'clock class. Like, I've always been a like, let me get my day done and like I can play on the back end. So I've always been that. And then kind of just looking and tweaking, like noticing like you watching TV and you're yawning. You're like, why are you staying up? Oh, because you want to watch this TV show. DVR, start over, watch the replay. Like, it'll be there. Like, it's not going anywhere. So I think really like looking back across the course of my life, when it comes to me scheduling things, I'm always like, doctor's appointment, dentist appointment, whatever. Like, what's your earliest appointment? Okay, I'll take that one. Like, I've always, and I still am that person, because even when it comes to flying, you're less likely, in my opinion, knock on wood, to have a delay on like a flight. The earlier your flight is, the later in the day it gets, the things that might have happened in the morning are now affecting it. So from doctor's appointments to anything that you're scheduling, what happened before you can now affect you. So the earlier I can get things, the less likely it is to be a hiccup that's now going to throw off and put a wrench in the whole rest of my day on my schedule.
Yeah, totally feeling that one. I can't do anything else but agree. Yeah, no, it's great being a morning person. But on the other hand, it's also nice that everyone has a different circadian rhythm, which is handy for our beautiful planet. Yeah, and I would like to ask you, do you have like some parting words, any tips that you would like to share with us? Anything else that you're like, oh my God, Jen, I have to tell you this?
Start, whatever it is, just start. Don't try to like eat an elephant. Just take a bite. Like, okay, you heard this and you're like, all of these things are good. Choose one thing, apply it. Maybe next week you bring in something else. If I said something, you're like, this doesn't work for me, don't do it. But just start. Like, if it's a brain up, if it's a to-do list, like, just start. Get it out of your head, get it onto paper, figure out where you want to start, and just start.
Yeah, that's a good one. Sometimes just starting makes the magic happen. And you've actually already done the hardest thing, which is starting, right?
Yep.
And also a little thing for you, because I want people to hear about your website, your socials, whatever. Where can we find you?
I am at legally.me everywhere, not to the legal aspect. That's LEGALLEE.me. That's literally website is www.legally.me. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, like all social media handles is at legally.me.
You kept it simple, which I love, because another time I had someone else who made like a bit of a mess out of it, but that's also fine. It was on the Dutch podcast, so I can say it here. It's okay. Systemize your stuff, guys, and just start the work. That's basically what we're saying. And grab a piece of pen. Yes, Jen. See, my brain is. I'm good. I'm not cutting this out. I'm just letting myself blabber on.
Transferring to the time when your brain doesn't get as creative. There we go.
Exactly. No, I really want to thank you for having been here. And I hope people will find you, because we need you. Like, especially women, we need you. I think you would be great with, helping us setting our boundaries and getting our planning a bit like better up and running, and just, we need a right hand, and I feel like you're a good right hand.
Thank you. Well, I'm here to be your right hand man, right hand girl, and help you along on this journey. So however I can support you, I am here.
Awesome. Okay, people, go find Coach Lee, and we will talk to you later.
Bye.
Awesome.
So that was my conversation with Coach Lee. And honestly, I really hope you took something real from that. What I loved about this episode is that it didn't make productivity feel cold or rigid or perfectionistic. It made it feel humane. Strategic, yes. Intentional, also yes. But also deeply and profoundly human. Because the goal is not to become some hyper efficient machine who never rests and never feels anything. The goal is to build a life and a way of working that actually supports your nervous system, your energy, your relationships, your goals, and your peace. For me, some of the biggest takeaways from this conversation were these basically. Okay, first, get it out of your head and onto paper. Not because paper is magical, but because your brain was never meant to be storage for every loose end. And by that also every reminder or responsibility or idea and all that stuff all at once, basically. So paper, paper, paper. Second, not everything on your list is equal. That must, need, and like to do structure is so simple, but so powerful, because the moment you stop treating every task like it's equally urgent, your whole system starts breathing again. Third, work with your body, not against it. That one matters so hard. You do not need to force yourself into someone else's ideal routine just because it looks disciplined on the internet, okay? Your rhythm matters, your capacity matters, and your real life matters. And fourth, your yes is expensive. Such a strong line, and such a true line. Every yes is a no to something else: your rest, your creativity, your focus, your family, your peace again, your own work. So choose carefully. And maybe the final reminder underneath all of this: you do not have to fix your whole life in one day, okay? You can just start. One adjustment, one boundary, one page, one list, one better decision at a time. If this episode helped you, I would really love it if you shared it. Share it with a friend, a colleague, your sibling, your business buddy, the person who is always fine between brackets, but absolutely has 46 tabs open in their brain. Post it to your stories, tag me, let me know what landed for you. I will definitely reshare everything about that. And that also genuinely helps the podcast grow. And it helps more people find these conversations, which are super important. And if you want more of this, more honest conversations around ambition, life, business, emotional health, creativity, and building things in a way that actually fits who you are, make sure you follow WithGen and come find me online. I regularly share updates about new episodes, free networking opportunities, personal development, business development, and ways to stay connected with what I'm building. So, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And yet again, thank you as always for spending a bit of your very precious life with me. I'll see you in the next one.